Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that just wants to make a Lego movie. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends, or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron, because patrons get those perks. I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and each week we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our mind. And please welcome our guest this week. She once accidentally sent a very witty, very romantic text to an oil rig worker named Red. It's Susan Comyob-Stevens.
Hi.
Welcome back, Susan.
Thanks for that introduction.
Yeah, of course. All true. It's always true. It's always
Totally.
Yes, Susan is hanging out with me today. Andrew couldn't make the show today, but thankfully Susan was already planned on being here and hanging out with us. In the comments already, people are saying Andrew looks a little different today. But I'm glad to have you back, Susan. You were here, I'm going to say a month and a half ago, something like that.
I think so,
maybe
yeah.
a couple months ago. To chat movies, and we're very glad to have you back. You are a film critic in Irving, Texas.
Yes.
And a fellow member of the Critics' Choice Association, as well as in the Dallas-Fort Worth Film Critics Association. Yeah. And you can find all of Susan's stuff at thischicksflix.com. And those are with X's. This chicks with an X, flicks with an X. .com if you want to check that out. How you been, Susan?
Good. Getting through it. You doing well?
Yes, it always is a weird question.
I know.
Man, it feels like we're almost there. And I even hesitate saying it because hope is a dangerous thing, right? Like it's one of those things you don't want to grab onto. But I just heard the stat today, I think, that 10% of the American population has had their first shot. 10%.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Wow.
So in that 2.7% is fully vaccinated. So yeah, that was, I actually heard that and I was like, oh, I don't know that I would have guessed that high. But yeah, so it is happening. People are getting vaccinated. The numbers are coming down now that we're through the holidays, although there may be another spike with the Super Bowl because who knows what people are going to do. But yeah, overall, I think, hope is a dangerous thing, but I'm there. I'm ready to hope that we're kind of coming through it. But it has made for an interesting award season and kind of trying to figure everything out and see these movies. In fact, we were talking about that in the members only pre-show. So if you are a top member, you can hear us talking about our Critics' Choice Awards nominations, some of our categories, weird choices, and just kind of how this year, some of the weird gifts that we got.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about over the movie.
As a member of a voting body and all that stuff. So yeah, you can check that out at patreon.com/sifpop. But yeah, you're making it through. Things are going okay. What is 2021? Like if you had to hope for one thing in 2021, what are you looking at? What are you excited about?
I'm hoping that we will, honestly, I really would love to get back to back to the movies, back to the movie theaters. Like we've gotten emails like asking us if we're feeling comfortable to go to the theaters yet,
Mm-hmm.
and I pretty much have still put, if I can get a link, I'd rather have a link.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I prefer to be in the theaters, but I don't feel safe yet. It's not completely there. But my hope is if we can get to this year comfortably going to a movie theater and maybe even being able to go to, like, I mean, we're not going for the Critics' Choice. It's not going to be live. I mean, we're not able to go. I would love if next year we could be able to attend the award show and be able to attend the Super Critics and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to traveling again.
Mm-hmm.
I really miss traveling. I have a lot of stuff I do for the different things that I do, whether it be, movie critic trips or the awards, or also just because I work in a company that is, bilocational, and so I've missed a lot of those trips and even just, vacations and doing stuff with family and friends and having people over to watch movies. Like I really miss just the idea of being more mobile, as I'm sure most people do. And I'm hoping for that as well, to come this year. So for me, I want them to keep sending links, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And this will make complete sense to you once I tell you why. My market doesn't get press screenings. So my closest press screenings are 3 hours drive away in St. Louis.
Wow.
So if I want to attend a press screening, which I have occasionally, I'm looking at 6 hours of travel to go there, watch the movie for a couple hours, come back. I'm looking at 8 hours out of my day, plus the gas to get there, all that kind of stuff. And if my fingers are crossed so hard that I may be breaking my finger bones, that they know they can do this, that they will help critics out who live in less populous areas and get us early links on stuff. Like, that's where I'm at. I've really enjoyed having, the screenings be links, because it's allowed me to have the access that most critics have that I just have never had. What
did you do before?
I do my coverage I go to the Thursday, first screening on Thursday, and I do all my coverage on Friday. And so, or Saturday. And so, it's just, I just have to turn it around really quick. And so, I'm hoping that sticks, but I understand, I would much rather see things in a theater. Yeah. And I know that's better for the experience, but I've invested in a decent TV and sound system. I've got a good experience here. I'm not going to short sell your project. So it's also on you to send me a good link, by the way. So, some of these links are so poor quality.
Right. No, that's what I'm sick of. I have gone insane over some of these links. I've had links where they're playing and they'll be like, it's a connection error, or your time has run out, or I'm like, what? This is not how I want to watch. Or it's skipping, or oh my god, the watermark on some of these screeners makes me insane. I hate it.
Your name across every movie?
No, I don't like see. And it's over, in the freaking middle. It's in the middle of the screen. Put it in the bottom, corner. Why are we doing, I'm not going to send this over. I don't want to see a big watermark. It's distracting. It's obnoxious. That hurts their film. They really need to remove that. Put that somewhere else.
Well, and so many times the links. By the way, you've now joined the movie critics rant about the screener links portion of the podcast. We may go an hour on this, but they also do this thing where they will send you a link, and it's not even to a player that can be Chromecast or AirPlayed or anything. And so you have to watch it on your laptop or your phone or whatever. And it's I would like to watch this on my big TV in great definition with a 5.1 Dolby surround. I have that capability. Why aren't you sending me a link to something that I can present to myself in that capability? And I think just at the end of the day, they're so worried about piracy that they just, they're willing to sacrifice that stuff. And I mean, I get it. I get you don't want the movie getting out there, but maybe there should be a level of trust between us. At some point we've proven that we're, not selling our screeners or whatever the case may be. So, yeah. So anyhow,
Yeah.
it's definitely been an interesting time, and thank you for joining us for the first world movie critic problems.
I know, right? I feel so bad. Look at us
Right?
complaining about that.
How dare you have low quality movies that are 3 days before anybody else gets to see
For
them?
free.
For free. How dare you?
Yeah.
Let's get into the show. We've got a couple of fun movies we're going to talk about today. Promise fun is an interesting word to apply to either of these movies, but Promising Young Woman and Malcolm and Marie we're going to review on the show today. We're also going to do best ever modern, quote unquote, I think we said after 1970, black and white films. So movies in black and white after 1970. That is in honor of Malcolm and Marie, which is in black and white. And of course, we'll have some buried treasure and some other fun stuff along the way. Let's kick it off with Promising Young Woman. Nothing in Cassie's life is what it appears to be. She's wickedly smart, tantalizingly cunning, and she's living a secret double life by night. Now, an unexpected encounter is about to give Cassie a chance to right the wrongs from the past. This is of Emerald Fennell, I think, presenting this to us. Carey Mulligan, starring as Cassandra. Bo Burnham in there as Ryan. Alison Brie as well. Christopher Mintz-Plasse. A lot of people you're going to recognize. Adam Brody. There's a lot of faces that you're going to recognize in this one. What did you think, Susan? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
Love it. It's my favorite film of the year. Number one.
Number one.
Nice.
Got you out for your number one film. I'm in the loved it camp as well. Maybe not quite as euphoric as you. It's not my number one of the year. I think it's in my top 10.
Okay.
Maybe 15. I'd have to look. But you seem disappointed. There were some good movies this year, you know.
Yeah, I don't know your number. Do you have a top 10 list somewhere?
I do a top 41 every year. I call it the Fave 41. I've been doing that. I just looked up my first one from 2004. I've been doing that for 16 years now, ranking my favorite 41 movies of the year.
That's impressive.
But yes, so in that, I'm trying to think where the quickest way to find that. Probably Letterboxd is the quickest way to find those lists. You just follow me on Letterboxd. You can check that out. But yeah, I have it somewhere in there. I loved it as well. I wouldn't even say low side. I loved it. I just loved it. I think this movie is doing some really incredible stuff. And I'd like, since it's your number one movie of the year, just kind of hear some of your general thoughts, right at the top. What did you love about this?
Honestly, okay, well, I will start by saying that I guess I haven't been fair to Carey Mulligan as an actress, because I think I haven't liked some of her characters in past films or something, but I thought she was this is easily her best performance I've ever seen her. And just the range that she gives and all the different emotions that she's able to convey in this film. Like, I mean, she goes from so many different levels so quickly, but it comes off very natural and you feel for her. But I really was just impressed with the story. I didn't know what I was walking into. I think they did a great job marketing this film, because it was enough to get you really like on edge. You're like, this feels creepy. You almost feel like it's going to be a horror in some ways.
There is an element of that, right?
And it
is a horror movie in a lot of ways. Like, there are some scenes in this movie. By the way, I should say this. We're not going to be spoiling anything during this main review. We will record some spoiler thoughts after the fact that should be in your podcast feed. So we will do a SIFT spoil on Promising Young Woman, because this is not a movie you can fully talk about without spoiling. We have to talk about the end. We have to talk about some of the stuff that happens here. But I will say there are some scenes in this movie that would feel right at home in a horror movie. I definitely think that is an aspect of what's going on here.
Yeah. And it's just such a unique, I'm always up for, this is an original screenplay, right? Or am I wrong?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, I believe original.
I didn't research it, but I believe it is, yes.
I believe it is too. That's my favorite category at the Oscars, just FYI. It's always my favorite, is original screenplay. And I love it because I love watching a film that I have no idea what's going to happen. I think as critics, we watch so many movies. Half the stuff we watched this year, I knew how they were going to end, what was going to happen. Sure. Just always, and that's normal. But when not every single point of this movie I didn't predict. There was something I predicted that I have to save in the spoilers. But other than that, I was just like, and it satisfied me. It hit the message of just with that Me Too movement and everything. Like it talks about how people involved, people who are even like not doing anything, but know about somebody's like harassment or something. They're just, it really highlights those people too.
Culpability, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it's letting you know, like, you're just as guilty, like, for not, I don't know, it's so hard not to spoil. Like, I'm trying to be careful with my words.
Yeah, I listen, I'm first I'll just say yes, it is an original screenplay, or if it's not, I put it in the wrong category on my
Me
ballot.
too, because that's what I put it in. I put it in that.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, this is a movie that is like, all right, I understand you want to say not all men, right? Like I get the urge to be like, well, not every guy is like this, and not like, but it is definitely a movie that takes very careful aim at the nice guys. Yes. And very careful aim at those of us, which is a category that I consider myself in, right? Like that is who I want to be. I want to be a nice guy. I want to be an ally. I want to be, and it says that the nice guy is often a front for a lot of the same stuff that you think of the lech or, whatever the person may be. And that message is so targeted in, like it is laser focused in throughout this entire movie in a way that I think really helps the movie to sell itself. And it's a movie, if nothing else, that really understands what it is. It understands what it's saying. It understands what its tone is. The tone is another thing about this movie that I really, really loved. I loved how it feels so complete and full. And by the time you get to the end, again, which we'll talk about in spoilers, there are things happening that you would be like, oh, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, whatever the case may be. But the movie has prepared you for its tone the entire time, so you feel like it works. It just works. And I'm completely with you that the overall message and theme of this movie about understanding where the nuance is and isn't about your responsibility in approaching this kind of topic, it's really important, and it's really done well. So
that's what I think I said in my review, is how this is an important film. It actually really should be shown in college classes, like, or high school even, just to show them. And I like what you said, because it's highlighting on the nice guys. And
it really is. It takes direct aim. I mean, I felt it. I definitely felt like, okay, really consider yourself. Really consider who you are and what your responsibility is and what your culpability is for the world around you. And, I would like to think that I am the kind of person who would stand up, would do the right thing, and not just my version of what the right thing is, but to really, truly be an ally. And but I'm gonna keep checking myself. Like a movie like this really helps you to check yourself, and I really appreciated that. I did. So, what else? What else did you like about what was going on here?
I really also enjoyed Bo Burnham. I think we don't get to see him a lot in roles like this. I mean, he was behind the camera in 8th Grade, which I thought was a great movie. But I remember thinking, why wasn't he in this movie? Like, I kind of wanted to see him in it. I think he's a fantastic comedian. I love his work as a stand-up. But I thought he was a really good actor in this film, too. I was kind of surprised watching him as a romantic lead. Yeah. And really, but in serious too. Like, I felt their romance. I was actually like feeling the spark, and enough to where I was like, man, you should probably be in some rom-coms or something, because you got that. He's great.
He really is great in this, and he plays such a central role in what this movie is trying to say. And it's I think he's so good that he makes something look easy that is not easy. I think that role is a very tricky fulcrum role of what is going on in this, and he makes it look like it's just easy to do, and I don't think it is. So, and I should say that two of them together do that, because Carrie is so great in that relationship as well, and understanding her character and her role, and and what their chemistry means and what it means to the plot and what it means to, like, I thought they were great together.
Yes.
In this, as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think, and watching her transformation throughout the movie, like watching her different emotions from the ultimate, like depressed, like this is from what happened, the way that affected her. And then just like, she seems so like nothing gives her happiness. Nothing gives her joy up until she meets Bo Burnham, and seeing her go from unhappy to the kind of happy that she does feel with him. And then what leads later, it's just, I don't know, that whole timeline. And it was just, man, I don't know, like that. I don't see that often. And it wasn't this, it's not a romantic comedy, but just that story, that specific, those two characters, just watching their evolution together, it was just really good.
Yeah, totally agree. I also really liked the casting beyond. I've talked a little bit about Adam Brody, Christopher Mintz-Plasse. I think there's some very intentional casting here of males that you have seen in other things as the fun guy, the nice guy. Max Greenfield is in here from New Girl.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Chris Lowell.
Yes.
Like just casting these guys that you want to like, that are, seem nice, and then kind of turning that on its head a little bit. So yeah, I think the casting is also, I really loved Alfred Molina. Another very interesting role of this film and kind of what it's trying to say. There's some really interesting things that happen with that character, and Carrie's reaction to that character and what happens in that part of the story. I was really impressed with the casting all around on this.
I mean, I liked her scene with Connie Britton too. Is it Brighton? Is that how you say it? Connie Britton. That was a very powerful scene too, just to see, because her character is such a common person in situations like what happened. And they tend to do what she did. And it was just, I really loved what Carey Mulligan's character had to do to kind of prove a point, I guess you could say.
That is the other part of it, is that it's not just the casting, it's also the writing. All of these characters feel like a real life representation of a worldview or person has existed in these kind of situations. You've heard the things that they're saying said by other people, and the movie is asking you to really litigate what the words are that they're saying and what they mean, instead of just accepting that this is an okay thing to say or an okay way to view the situation. And there may be times in this movie, I can't speak for everybody's experience, but there may be times in where you're really wrestling with what's wrong with that view. What's wrong with, understanding that part of the world, or having this approach. And the movie's like, it's not going to let you not wrestle with it. And that it's so good at that. And I was really impressed with the writing, as well. So, we haven't talked any negatives. It was your number one movie of the year. I loved it as well. This may be difficult. Did you have anything about the film that you're like, this probably falls in the negative category?
I cannot think of one. I really can't. I mean, I'm trying to think. I feel there might have been something, maybe like a minor thing, but I can think of things that I wish didn't happen, but that's not any fault of the movie. It was all it was all effective. It had to happen for a reason. And what I like that you said too is how the ending, some people, especially if you weren't paying attention, could be like, what? That didn't make sense where that come from, but it didn't. It prepared you for it because of the tone and everything that was happening. It felt you might feel.
Oh, we may have lost
like,
Susan.
You're going when it's done. When it's done, you're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it all fits together. It all makes sense. I think the only thing I would mention, and this is one of those cases where, in many ways, I am regurgitating a negative that I have heard, not necessarily something I can feel personally. But there is, I wouldn't say there's conversation about the idea that this is very much a white feminist movie, that there is a trust of law enforcement that happens at points in this movie that is almost counterintuitive to what the movie is saying. And that there is, because of the way this movie finishes, that there is a little bit of inconsistency in the theme and what the movie is trying to say about authority, about power, those kind of things. Again, this is me restating something that, again, my background is not, it's not personal to me, but I did think it was important for me to at least verbalize that I have heard from others about that. But other than that, no. I mean, there are moments here or there where I'd be like, I didn't quite buy that, or but this is a movie with very few flaws, in my opinion, and I really enjoyed it. So there you go. I think that's a huge recommend from both Susan and I for Promising Young Woman. The only other thing I will say, and I don't mean this as a negative, I just mean it's important information. Maybe do a trigger search for yourself on this one. There are certainly some kinds of things that happen here that may be very difficult for some people, especially survivors of assault and different things. I think this is definitely one that deserves a little bit of trigger caution, a little bit of the idea of know yourself, know what you want to process, what you don't want to process, and then maybe do some research on the film. So I did want to mention that as well. But other than that, I think it's a huge recommend for me. I think it's a pretty incredible film.
I agree.
All right, well, let's get into the next one then. Let's talk a little bit about Malcolm and Marie. Smoldering tensions and painful revelations push a filmmaker and his girlfriend towards a romantic reckoning. Malcolm and Marie is a COVID movie. This comes to us written, produced, brought the whole 9 yards in the bubble. In fact, I think there are lots of interesting things that they're saying about how they did their own makeup, they did their own, this was definitely one of a stripped down crew kind of idea. Zendaya is Marie, John David Washington is Malcolm. It is just them for the entirety of the runtime. And so, Sam Levinson, who, by the way, also brings us the movie Euphoria on HBO, which is where he has a connection with Zendaya as well. What did you think, Susan? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or was it just okay?
It was just okay.
Okay. Good. Yeah. I'm really interested to talk about this.
Okay, me too.
I am trying to wrestle with my own views on this movie. I loved this movie. I may have loved this movie as much as I loved Promising Young Woman.
What?
I was blown away. Now, I'm wondering if my expectations play a role in this. I was not expecting anything out of this movie. Nobody had really, we got early screeners, as we often do. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a lot of buzz or talk about it yet. There certainly is this week, now that it's available on Netflix, right? Malcolm and Marie is on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. Mm-hmm.
And we should say Promising Young Woman, by the way, I think is still for rental. I don't think that's streaming free anywhere. But,
no, you can video on demand.
Yeah. At most places. So I hadn't really heard a lot. That's in general for me. I don't like to know a lot going into a movie. Whatever. This is a movie, I think, that rises and falls on how you feel about two things. Number one, the performances, and number two, the writing. And that makes sense because that's really all the movie has going on is performances and writing. And both of those things floored me. I thought Zendaya was astonishing in this movie. She does some things in this movie. And by the way, she's great in Euphoria. She's great in other things she's done. But she does some stuff in this movie that were cards I didn't know she had in her deck. And I was blown away by her. I'm a huge John David Washington fan as well, and I think he has some incredible moments in this. It's very clear that Sam Levinson wrote them big moments to do their thing and to do capital A acting. And I bought it. I just bought in. I was giddy. I almost felt like I was watching an action movie. Like I was just like, the way these characters were talking to each other and the conversations they were having, I was compelled. I was in it. And I thought it was also beautiful. I thought it was so well shot and so gorgeous. So I kind of wonder, like, was it just I was in a great place for this movie that day, and so it ended up blowing me away? I'm really excited to hear some of the things that bring it down for you, some of the things that have brought it down for others, so I can start to wrestle with that and kind of contemplate what did I miss when I was so enamored with this the first time I watched it. So feel free to start wherever you want. You can start with the good, whatever, but what are some of your general thoughts?
And I'm a little torn too, just as far, I mean, because if you've seen Rotten Tomato, it's not the best.
No. I just saw that before we started that it's under 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, that does as much as Rotten Tomatoes can mean something or doesn't mean something.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
But this is one of those things where you're like, well, that means 4 out of 10 Rotten Tomato critics liked it poorly enough that they gave it a rotten rating.
Yeah.
That does mean something, when 40% of the critics are like, I think this is bad in some way or another, at least below mediocre.
Yeah.
That means something, and that's interesting. So
yeah, I was surprised. I was actually surprised that it's like 50. It's technically rotten right now. I wouldn't give it a rotten score by no means. So when I started watching it, it already goes into a negative. We'll get into black and white later. I'm not a big black and white fan. But as far as once it started, I was actually super into it because I liked the conversation they were having.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm totally with you, Marie. Yeah, I would feel the same way as you.
Right.
I'm there. And here's where it lost me. They're having this great argument. They're having the fight. And then they resolve it. And then just minutes later, it's almost like her character had to she had to keep creating fights. Mm-hmm. And I understand that is realistic, like couples get in fights, but and this is just my own personal thing, if I have a fight with my husband that night, by that point when we're good, we're about to go to bed. We've mm-hmm. squashed it. We're not going to go into 5 new arguments and then almost have sex and then, you know what? Never mind. I want to bring up this other thing. And then it felt a little forced with the fights. And I wanted to be there for it because, I agree with you. Zendaya, I've always thought, until this movie, she's a good actress. She's mm-hmm. good. She's fine. Nothing has blown me away. After this, there's a certain specific scene mm-hmm. that I was kind of distracted a little. And I was because it was toward the end. They were just keeping mm-hmm. going. And I literally stopped what I was doing. I was just
mm-hmm.
What's that? Yeah. I rewound it. I was I was literally oh my God. Cause I was that captivated by her performance.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I wish I saw the film before I put in my CA nominations on that one, that I got it in time. But she was so good. John David Washington, he was good. He was great. He's a great actor too, but mm-hmm. she's the one that sold me the most as far as performance. I would say she just blew. I mean, obviously they fed off each other, but phenomenal. And I really appreciated what they were trying to do. I think it was a great conversation, but halfway through, I just felt like they were going in circles, and it was losing me. I was like, y'all, this is the same thing over and over again. I know you're trying to be realistic. Couples do this, mm-hmm. but I don't know how well that translates on screen. It's then make the movie 45 minutes or something. Maybe this should have been a short film. I don't know. We didn't need the same. I was they talk about this actress again, and I'm just didn't we already cover this? Except for that end, that towards that, there's this moment where she gives just this incredible powerhouse scene. Mm-hmm. But before that, they were losing me.
I have some thoughts. I totally understand what you're saying. I think the realism is what I liked about it. Mm-hmm. Because, if you don't think couples go round and round in circles, you haven't met a lot of couples, because I think we all know this couple who mm-hmm. has, a relationship that is, aggressively, I'm trying to think of the right word, but there's this idea that resolution is not something that will ever happen. It's like they just can't let it go. And so I totally bought into that. I can see how in a movie it may make it feel the plot feel a little bit redundant and so as a story you're going, well, I've already seen this part of the story. I think I was so enamored with the actual artistry of the words and some of the speechifying that was going on, which usually has a negative connotation. And that may be something that people didn't like about the movie as well. I've heard the word pretentious thrown around by a couple people in their reviews. I understand that. I totally get that. I'm just telling you, I was so blown away by the verbal gymnastics that were happening and just the interesting ways of phrasing things. And it's a very Sorkin effect for me. I have the same thing with Sorkin. A lot of people find Aaron Sorkin pretentious and, that people don't really talk that way. But I'm just so drawn into just kind of the interesting nature of a world where people do talk that way or can think of those things that I get really compelled. And so I think that was part of it for me. But I think I see your point about that.
So one thing that I kept popping in my mind, actually, as I was watching this film, I kept thinking back to A Marriage Story. That was what reminded me. I was going back to that, and I was thinking about how, for me, that felt more realistic, because I do think some of the dialogue didn't quite, it sounded a little almost poetic, a little too poetic of fighting. Like, I don't know if we're that articulate and well thought out when we're arguing with each other. So I couldn't help but think back at like the way they showed Marriage Story and how, again, it was a span of different days. Like you got these like subtle, aggressions, like, like subtle, like digs at each other. And then of course their big blow up fight, that was one of the best scenes in that film, and you could feel it. I found that more effective and realistic, because I think that's how I imagine in real life, that's how most of the time couples go. They don't just unload all this stuff back and forth. It spans out over time, and then you have these blow-ups, and maybe it would happen again later. That was what was losing me, this was all one night, and we just kept going over and over. And just when they were about to, things were about to get better, I was just like, how are we having this argument again? And I get it. They're not going to get over it. They've got so much resentment. I don't know, this couple shouldn't be together. He even says, he's like, we're somebody that's probably going to get a divorced a few times. You shouldn't be together, probably. But, I mean, so that's why, that was probably another thing that hurt it. I was thinking, maybe Marriage Story did this a little bit better. It's a different concept. It's a different idea completely.
Yeah, it sounds like the concept really handcuffed it for you. As far as this kind of movie, would you say it's done as, and maybe not as well as you can for this kind of movie, but it's done well for a movie that has restricted itself to this concept? Because it does sound like the concept handcuffed it for you. I think you're absolutely right. Marriage Story is more authentically, which is a funny word to use in a review about a movie that the word authenticity. In fact, my Letterboxd review was just the definition of the word authenticity. I just put authenticity noun and then the definition. And by the way, that might be part of it. Is it possible that part of it is this movie tears apart critics? And so critics are like, Well,
that's the other thing I was going to say. I feel like I'm not white, but I feel like that critic that he just absolutely hated is and she gave a good review, but I'm just like, I feel guilty. So I'm like, oh my God, don't listen to this and think I'm terrible.
No. Almost makes it critic proof, doesn't it? Where it's go ahead, critics, say a negative thing about this movie and you'll just fall into the trap of what this movie's talking about. I found that interesting as well. But I think what I was saying was, for the handcuffs that this movie has put on itself, or you could say that the situation has put on this movie. I think it's about as good as you could do it. I think a lot. You're right. Marriage Story is more affecting, but Marriage Story is also able to be told over years, and this is told in real time, in the real time moment of this couple in their life. And yeah, so I think you're right. I think that does hinder the ability for the movie to feel as real as it could if you got a broader perspective of this couple. But yeah, I just kind
Yeah.
of bought into it.
Yeah, it kind of feels as though the script makes it almost feel like an adapted, like stage to screen script.
Sure.
Because you
Yeah.
feel like this would have been on Broadway, like
Yeah.
at a play, because they, that's typically, it kind of reminds me of like The Father, like these kinds of things. So I guess it's not their fault. They're limited. So like that's why I feel almost unfair being so hard on it. Part of it though is like any like reason why it was so good is honestly more for the concept, but also the acting. The actors killed it. So they saved the redundancy that was happening.
Yeah.
I don't know what else the writer could have done to make that second half of the film fresh. Versus besides that one scene I'm talking about with Zendaya. That was the only thing I could think of. But other than that, I'm just trying to think what direction he could have gone in, because I know it's hard.
What he's doing here, what it very felt, it felt to me very much like a boxing match. Like the idea of he's really trading blows, flurries. Sometimes it looks like dancing when the boxers are, not necessarily hitting each other, so they're hitting each other, but then there's sometimes it looks like they're dancing together, and like it's just there's something very athletic about what's going on here, and I kind of enjoyed that. There's a John David Washington speech. I mean, they both have like these series of monologues, and there was one where I just found myself. It's the one where he's wandering outside and then coming back inside and then going back outside. And I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And I think from that moment, the movie just had me. You know how a movie will do that sometimes?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd have the same experience watching it again. I kind of don't think I would. But for that night that I watched that, and from that scene on, I was just like, okay, take me, movie, wherever we're going. Let's go there. And I had a really good time with it.
It's funny. See, I actually was hooked when she admitted what was wrong right at the beginning. When she admitted the thing, I don't know if we should say it, but when she admitted what was wrong, I was like, oh, yeah, go ahead. Let me see what you're got to say, because I would be just like you. I would be just like you.
Sure, and it's legitimate. It feels very legitimate. It feels very real. I wonder do you feel like maybe you were more invested in the points she was trying to make than the points he was trying to make, and so anything where it was like about the criticism or what it's like to be a creator or that kind of stuff just didn't mean as much to you, and so it wasn't like compelling you as much as like her point that she's making about her role in this movie and those kind of things.
Yeah, I think so, especially because sometimes his character came off a little arrogant. Just like
I think that was intentional.
Yeah, it was too much. I was like, look, man, I don't know where you're getting off. Like he was, he talked to us like, oh, you don't know who this filmmaker is. Oh, like you don't get it because you're not in the movie biz. And he just like wasn't accepting even a good, like he was being so angry over like a good review. And I was just like, man, I don't know what you're wanting.
I think that's real, though. I think artists have that level of insanity.
Yeah,
I know it's in me in some ways, where it's just like you find the negative thing, and you're just like, you think you're giving a good review, but I see what you did there. Like that kind of thing. I think happens with creative people, and especially high impact, high strung creative people. I think have that even more. I think there's some reality there.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's realistic. I just found his character not. I mean, just to your point, I was definitely leaning towards her. I just agreed with her. I gravitated towards her. Like anything, Marie did no wrong to me. I was just like, girl, I'm with you. Snaps.
I get it. I totally get that. Good conversation. Definitely recommend for me. Susan, recommend-ish. Like, who would you recommend this movie to?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth the watch. It is worth the watch. I just, if you like, just know going in, it's two people having an argument for an hour and a half. That's
and in many ways the same argument.
In many ways the same argument. Yeah, it's great acting, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all about macaroni and cheese. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I wanted that mac and cheese,
Oh,
actually.
man.
It looked
Even,
so good.
even in black and white, that mac and cheese looked amazing.
It did.
Which is a great place to transition to our best ever challenge about black and white movies. Before we do, though, however, I do want to thank again our amazing SIF Pop members for making this show possible. If you're interested to see what all that's about, what it means to be a SIF Pop member, kind of how that works, you can go to the Patreon, patreon.com/SiftPop. That's SIFTPOP. And thank you to those who every month send a few dollars our way to keep doing this thing. It's very encouraging. It's very much a vote for us to keep going, and do appreciate that very, very much. Again, it's patreon.com/SiftPop. Yeah, let's move into best ever modern black and white movies. Now, Susan, you don't like black and white movies. Tell me a little bit about this anti-black and white movie stance that you have. Where does this come from?
I feel like such an anti-critic when I say this, because I feel like so many critics are like, oh, it's beautiful. Bring us back to the times. Like, I don't even know. I'm just like, I am one of those people. I'm like, why? Why is it in black and white? Like,
it's like the why go camping kind of thing.
Right. That's how I feel.
We have central air. Like, why are we going outdoors?
Yeah, like, I don't understand. Unless there's a purpose, unless they're trying to tell a story from something that happened a long time ago, like something like that, I get it then. But when they do, this happens all the time. Like, we're watching, like, even Mank. Like, why? Like, it would have been just better in color.
A ton of sense.
It does, but I'm just.
When you consider it's not just about being black and white for that movie, it's actually about feeling like there are real changes in the upper right corner in that movie where you see the little blips that show you like a real change is coming. Like the sound was like recorded on like the same equipment that the sound of that time. Like that is very much an intentional thing to make the movie feel like it was made in that era.
Yeah. No, it is. I just don't like black and white.
You know,
like,
I have the same feelings, and I agree with you. Not about every movie that's in black and white, because I do think there is purpose for a lot of them.
Yeah.
But like I think of, and I'm not going to mention this in mine. I apologize if you're going to mention it in yours. But I think of a movie like Nebraska, and I watch that movie and I go, "There's no point." Like other than going, I'm an artist. Like I don't get the black and white. Now somebody could correct me on that. Somebody could say, I think here's what he's doing in that case. But yeah, I'm with you. There are some times where I'm like, this feels pointless to me, and I like pretty colors. So please bring me pretty colors.
Yeah. Nebraska is a good example of that. Yeah. So it just, and even, I mean, Malcolm and Marie, like, I don't know. Maybe it's just, I don't get it. But I just like colors.
It may have been a time decision, like with color correction and those kind of things. And it's possible that that's what that was. But you'd have to ask Sam Levinson to know for sure. And maybe he's talked about it somewhere. I just haven't seen it. But we're going to talk about our top 5 movies that were in mostly black and white. There is a little bit of leniency here for some color to appear in the movie. I think I said the vast majority of it should be in black and white. But I do have a couple honorable mentions that use plenty of color, but that I wanted to mention because of the way they use black and white as well. But let's start at number 5. We'll work our way to number 1. Susan, I'll go ahead and start. My number 5 is Mank. And since we were just talking about it, I thought I'd mention it. I really enjoyed this movie. It is definitely one of my favorites of the year.
Wow.
I think I had it in my top 10 of the year, and I think it's full of great performances. And I really enjoyed. I just think the experience of watching it. So yeah, that's my number 5.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did not. Well, my number 5. Well, I'm gonna just start this out by saying most of my top 5 here, I was not even that crazy about. I struggled to make this list.
Sure, that happens sometimes. Yeah.
Just so you know, I probably would have put Malcolm and Marie in there, and I enjoyed it more than most of these in here, but it's not in there. So, but Roma is my number 5.
Oh, okay. I will, as we say, trump you on that. We will talk about that later in my list. So
Okay.
we will go ahead with my number 4. This one may be a surprise to everyone. My number 4 is Frankenweenie. I think it's a really fun movie and really interesting decision to do animation in black and white, computer generated animation. It's definitely an artistic choice, right? We're not talking about film here. We're not talking about some sort of, pristine, originalist idea of film. We're just talking about somebody making a choice based on the thematic, of the movie and those kind of things. But I really do enjoy this movie, and I dig Tim Burton stuff. So Frankenweenie is my number 4. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Nebraska. It's okay. I couldn't even tell you much what it was about. I was struggling to put stuff.
Yeah. I remember the award season of Nebraska. They gave out prize winner hats to everybody at the awards, because that's the big thing is, where's that prize winner hat or whatever. So I've got this picture that pops up in my favorite photos every once in a while, because my whole family went that year, not to the awards, but on the trip to California.
Oh, okay.
And they all had that prize winner hat on. So I have, like, that's my connection to Nebraska, is that photo will show up every once in a while. I'm like, I know what that's from. But I did not enjoy this movie. I thought it was kind of pointless. But
Yeah. No, like I said, I really, honestly, even Roma was just, these are
How
just
dare
movies.
you? How dare you? We'll talk about that in a bit. But how dare you?
No, Roma was fine. It was fine.
It was more than fine, but we'll get there shortly. My number 3 is Good Night and Good Luck.
Okay.
This is what I have at number 3. This is one of the, unfortunately, few Clooney directorial movies that I like. For some reason, when George Clooney directs a movie, it doesn't seem to work for me. But I really thought this one did, and I don't know if it's the subject matter, the performances, but I thought it was really powerful and really well done. So that is my number 3. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is this recent?
No, this was a while back.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's actually a Persian, like horror, vampire, Western horror, whatever you want to call it. So maybe I'm biased a little bit there. But I'm just looking up the year now. I actually should know. It was another one that was just, it was different. It was very artsy. Honestly, it was probably another one that I just found okay anyway. No, it was good. It just, and it fit, I guess it fit the black and white. Performances were good. It was weird. It was another one that felt very like poetic, like almost Shakespearean at times.
Nice.
Slightly.
Well, you're getting some love in the chat as well. Other people in the chat definitely enjoyed that. So that's one I may have to put on my watch list. I've never seen it, so I may have to check that out. Do I have to be like a horror fan? Like, how horror is it?
Like, it's not even. It's not that horror-y. No,
Okay.
no. I think you could appreciate it. I think you could appreciate it for sure. It's very beautifully shot. It's a beautiful film. I would say that.
All right. Producer Phil saying 2014 is when Girl Walks Home Alone at Night came out.
2014. Yeah, I just pulled that up, and it has Sheila Vaughn, who was in The Rental this year.
Oh, okay.
That girl, yeah.
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 I kind of liked that movie.
I did too. I didn't think it was that
That was
bad.
pretty good. I mean, it's terrible in a plot mechanics sense. Like, there's so much of it doesn't make sense. But like, I enjoyed the tone and the performances, and yeah, The Rental's an interesting one.
Yeah. Same.
All right, my number 2. This is where I have Schindler's List. There is a little bit of color in this movie. It is used very intentionally. In fact, one of the most powerful moments of the movie depends on color for it to actually work. It wouldn't work without the color coding that goes on there. So yeah, I don't know that there's a ton more to say about Schindler's List, except that it's a powerful, important movie, and comes in at my number 2.
Yeah, it's one of those movies I avoid. I don't want
I
to
know.
watch it.
Yeah, I think
But
we talked about that
yeah.
on your list of shame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I believe you that it's good, though. I believe you.
Okay, thank
That's
you. I
what I
appreciate that.
say. My
I
number
mean,
two.
it is
Oh,
in
go ahead.
black and white, so you may hate it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That one sounds purposeful. See, I feel like that's one that there's a reason there. It wouldn't bother
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
But The Artist was my number two.
Oh, okay. The artist is okay.
It's okay. I mean, it
Yeah.
did win Best Picture that I didn't agree with that year to
Yeah.
win.
Me either. I
But
had it in my honorable mentions.
yeah.
So yeah, I can see that one. All right, fine. We'll talk about Roma. It is my number one.
Ah,
This is currently in my top 20 movies of all time, I believe. I think this is an absolutely astonishing piece of work by Coran here. I think the way he layers, I've talked about Roma so much, but the way he layers in his themes in this movie is genius level. There's some stuff going on with conversations that appear to be nothing that have everything to do with what he's talking about, joy and pain existing in the same frame, the idea of what life is, and I this is a movie I love so much that when I was going over my best ever modern black and white movies, and I had my list, I was like, I should do a final check, just see I didn't miss anything. So I did like a Google search of movies that were in black and white or whatever, and Roma was on that list, and I went, Roma's not in black and white. That movie is totally in color. Like what? Like that's not a black and white movie. And then I thought of the poster, and I was like, well, the poster's that is a black and white. Like this world was so real to me that I had colorized it in my mind. Like it was, so it was just kind of one of those experiences where I had to like shake myself back into reality and be like, oh yeah, that is a black and white movie. But yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And you've already said your piece that you think it's just okay, and that's okay. We can still be friends.
yeah.
But I definitely love it more than just okay. So
That's fair enough. Fair enough. I don't know if mine is gonna piss off people as far because I know there's some color in it. It's Sin City.
yeah, there's a little bit of color in that one.
little bit
I
of a
think,
color.
I think we can count it.
Yeah.
Definitely a black and white vibe going in there. You like that movie, or is this just another one that's just okay?
I think it's the one I truly like the most of the four that are the five that I picked. But I honestly have not watched it since I watched it in theaters so long ago. But I do remember thinking it was because I saw the second one and I wasn't as impressed as the first one. But I remember thinking it was just really cool. I was like, wow, this is just, I really enjoyed the way they shot it and the colors. And I feel bad because I don't remember the story
Sure.
all that much because I really I remember, it's kind of how they say, like, you may not remember what somebody said, but you remember how they made you feel. Well,
Exactly.
I remember how this movie made me feel when I was in the theater, and I remember feeling like I enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
So.
The visual aesthetic in this movie is pretty incredible. Frank Miller, Robert Rodriguez co-directed this movie, I believe, and they both have a real flair for the visual. And I think that's partly why the black and white works in this too, is because they understand how to use it.
Yeah.
And what it means and all those kind of things. So I don't think this is a horrible choice. It's not one of my favorite movies, but I know it has a very big following. A lot of people really love the Sin City, at least this one, maybe not the second one, but yeah, I get it. Totally get it. So you probably don't have any others that in your honorable mention. You had to use like dishonorable mentions in your top 5 almost.
I know. I'll give an honorable mention to Malcolm and Marie because I do think after watching it, and that was another thing. I did go in with really low expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I at least really enjoyed the performances and like I said, the actual concept. I did. So yeah.
I will throw out Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing, which is the actual Shakespearean text, but in a modern environment. It's a really interesting movie. Frances Ha is probably worth mentioning.
Oh my God, I forgot that movie.
Hey, I got another one for you to put on your list.
Crap, that's my number one.
There you go. Everything else moves down.
Everyone moves down. I love that movie. Yeah.
Nice. There you go. You found a black and white movie you love.
I
Susan.
do love that movie. I do.
Way to go. Clerks, I think, is worth a mention. Kevin Smith's debut. Raging Bull is not all in black and white, but enough so that it probably would have counted. Pi is an interesting movie. So there's that one. And then special mentions to Memento, which has plenty of color in it, but it uses black and white for when it's going backwards as opposed to forwards. Similar things done in Dead Again, which is another movie I really enjoy, where black and white is used to indicate the past. And then the one that plays into this specifically, and a movie I love, is Pleasantville. I really enjoy the movie Pleasantville, and obviously it is about the difference between black and white and color and many other things as well. So I wanted to throw Pleasantville out there.
It's a good one too. Yeah, I didn't think that would count.
No, it probably, that's why I just said kind of special mention, because I don't think those would have counted on the list. In fact, if those would have counted, Pleasantville probably would have made my list. It probably would have been like number 4. All right, let's move on to Buried Treasure. We're going to talk about one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure people know about. I'm going to let you go last, Susan, so I'll go ahead and get mine out there. Speaking of black and white movies, this is not a modern black and white movie, but it is in black and white. It's His Girl Friday. I finally got around to seeing His Girl Friday. This blew me away. I like old movies. I totally enjoy old movies. Usually there's just much more of an element of, that was nice. That was fun. I enjoyed that experience. This was one of those movies where I was just like, this is hilarious. Like, they are so good together. Cary Grant is just, he's one of my favorites. It's really incredible that I'd never seen this before. It's just, again, one of those things. It's just like, when is it time? When is it time to throw in His Girl Friday? Howard Hawks is just, he's so incredible, does such great stuff. This is one, if you're looking for classic movies that you're going to that feel modern, there's something very modern feeling about this movie and the way these characters interact. There's very much a what they would have said at the time, they would have phrased it as like career gal kind of mode to this movie. And I just loved it because it felt very modern. A lot of things they were saying felt very up to date. So it's a very high recommend for me, His Girl Friday, if you haven't checked it out. So there you go. That's my Buried Treasure. What do you got?
Well, I think I might have talked about this last time, but it was a different season. But did I talk about Bachelorette last time?
You may have. Are you doing back to back?
I struggled. I was like, what's something like that is going on? And I was like, all right, well, The Bachelor. Yeah. Matt James, first Black Bachelor. He's been doing, yeah, for real. And he's doing a great job. Just this week, I have to give him kudos because there have probably been, it's been in the news that there is a group of the meanest girls that have ever been on the show. Like, there's this girl, Victoria, who she's just a whole other level kind of bully that we've seen for people who are Bachelor fans. And I mean, he finally got rid of, there was another girl too with her who wasn't as bad, but anyways, he got rid of him, and it was just, he handled it so well. We've seen other bachelors in the past who are oblivious to this, or they let the mean girls stay, believe them, and he just put out how he needs to make it a safe environment for the other women that are here. You're not a bad person, but the damage is done, and you just need to go. But also, this girl Victoria, she's delusional. I won't compare her to somebody who was a former leader of our country, but she literally calls the women losers. She says she's the best pick. I'm the best person ever. And whenever she leaves, whenever he sends her home, she doesn't give him a hug and just calls him out and says, I feel sorry for you that you would believe these women and whatever. And he has nothing to say to him. Or nothing to say to her. He just stays back and she walks away, and she says that she'll never date another Matt again. And
another person with the same name.
She said, I'm never gonna date a Matt again. And
he's ruined all Matts.
It's great. I know it's if you're into Bachelor, it's interesting. All right.
I am not into Bachelor, but I love the fact that there's, I'm sure, a subset of Sif Pop listeners who are just jump up and down for joy that somebody would talk about the show, because we never talk about reality dating shows. They're my black and white movies. I do not enjoy them. But yeah, that is interesting. I love that people get into, kind of their own things and go for it. That idea of never dating another Matt again, I will probably be thinking about that for a long, long time.
Well, they made a meme and they said congratulations to all Matts. So yeah.
Congratulations, you're out of the pool. Nicely done. Well, we did it, Susan. We did a podcast. Well done. Congratulations to all of us for accomplishing this goal. Thank you so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching for Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the show today. Appreciate you, Phil. Thanks to Drew for putting together all the graphics. Appreciate that as well. And thank you to Susan for hanging out with us once again. Susan, where would you like to send people? Where can they find you online if they want to hear more of your stuff?
You guys can see me at thischicksflix.com, City of Irving YouTube channel, and I'm on Instagram, Twitter, at thischicksflix, and that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you again for hanging out with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Also, much love and gratitude to our Sif Pop members for giving monthly to make Sif Pop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month, and you get access to every bonus episode, including the one that Susan and I recorded today, as well as some other fun perks. You can check all that out at patreon.com/SifPop. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to comment, rate, or leave a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can also email us, feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than dissing film critics in your movie and still getting good reviews. We will be back next week with Judas and the Black Messiah in Minari. So a couple more big hitters next week, and we will see you then. Bye. Thank you to the live video watchers for hanging out with us today. Lots of fun stuff going on in the chat. Shout out to Charbel, Rockman, Lolly, David hanging out with us again. Thank you. Appreciate you all. And let us know what you need, what you want us to talk about, and we will do it. So we're going to get going because we got a Super Bowl to watch. Well, some people do. I'm not a big football guy. So.
That's what happens for the food. So.
That's what happens when you grow up in Michigan and everybody roots for the Detroit Lions. Is you're not a big football fan because they never do anything.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you next week, guys.